Yes, welcome back to the Life Science Seminar. We're ready now to hear from Ascelia Pharma. They have a market cap of 135 million Swedish krona, and as we know, they have their primary product candidate is Orviglance, which is a diagnostic product to detect liver cancer. They also have a cancer treatment drug candidate, Encore. With us today to present the company is Magnus Corfitzen, CEO of Ascelia Pharma. And Magnus, I know it's very challenging and busy times for you, and also in light of today's announcement from your company. So I know there's a lot to talk about, but I'm very happy that you are taking the time to give us an update on Ascelia. So please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm happy to give you everyone an update here on what is happening in Ascelia and how we're moving forward in bringing our novel drugs to patients. And yes, these are busy times. We sent out a press release earlier today announcing reduction in the size of the organization in order to save cost and make sure we can get our products as far as possible. So I will be making a number of forward-looking statements today. Ascelia Pharma is dedicated to identifying, developing, and commercializing novel drugs that address unmet medical needs for people with rare cancer conditions. And we do that by developing our pipeline with 2 drug candidates in the clinic. We have Orviglance, which is our lead program. It's nearing completion of the phase 3. We have fully enrolled the study. We have the images in the database. And this product is used in detection of cancer in the liver in patients with kidney disease. We have orphan drug designation from the FDA. It's the only product targeting this $800 million addressable market opportunity. As mentioned, we have the results pending. We don't have the results yet, and I'll come back to that in a great deal of more detail. Also, we have Oncoral, which is a patented daily dosing of irinotecan. Irinotecan is a chemotherapeutic agent, and we think this is a very exciting opportunity to bring hopefully even better efficacy and safety profile to patients with gastric cancer and potentially other solid tumors. Our company is based in Malmö in Sweden. We've been trading on Nasdaq since 2019. So first, I'll talk about Orviglance. And first, I just want to give you sort of the highlight, the key value proposition of this drug candidate. So we're targeting an unmet medical need where really the patients have poor options today. We can do this better with Orviglance, and that it translates into an $800 million addressable market opportunity. We have a solid clinical development program. We have concluded 8 phase 1 and phase 2 clinical studies with consistent positive results, both on efficacy and on safety. For the pivotal phase 3 study, Sparkle, we have completed enrollment. We did that earlier this year. We also noted that common adverse events were in line with previous clinical studies, which we see as a very good result. Unfortunately, as we announced earlier this month, we cannot conclude on the efficacy due to errors or issues in the evaluation, the image reading process, and I'll come back to that in a few slides. But first, I'll talk about what problem Orviglance is solving, why that is making, assuming we get approval, why it's becoming a benefit for patients. So within cancer care, cancer in the liver is a major issue. In particular, liver metastasis, where cancer starts in one organ, could be the colon, or could be the lungs or breast, and then it metastasizes, it spreads to the liver. This is a very common problem, and the way to deal with that in clinical practice is to do medical imaging. So the best way to look for cancer in the liver is a contrast-enhanced MRI. So a patient in today's practice will have an injection into the bloodstream with a gadolinium-based contrast agent, and that improves the visualization and helps the radiologist and the oncologist to make the most accurate diagnosis and treatment decisions and treatment follow-up. So as mentioned, these gadolinium-based contrast agents are used in most patients, and for patients with healthy kidneys, it's you could say the standard of care. The problem that we're solving is that in patients with kidney disease, severe kidney disease, they have a risk of potentially fatal side effects, which is known as nephrogenic systemic fibrosis. There's a black box warning on the package insert for all of these gadolinium products. And it's because the gadolinium is a toxic heavy metal, and it can cause this inflammatory fibrosis response in some patients. So that is the unmet medical need. Because Orviglance is based on manganese, it's not an injection. Also, it's an oral agent, so it's mixed with water, and the patient will drink it, and there's very little systemic exposure. So it's a very, very different profile, but it gives very high quality images, as we've seen in the earlier studies, and that is what we needed to you could say reproduce in the phase 3. So well-defined unmet medical need. That's why we have the orphan drug designation. So in the pivotal phase 3, the Sparkle study, we have 85 patients, and what they need to assess is, you could say the primary outcome is based on assessment of the border delineation and lesion contrast. So border delineation is that when they have an image of the liver, they look at the, you could say the black spots, which are the lesions. In many cases, it's a cancer. They look at how well defined the image is, how strong is the difference and between the tumor tissue and the healthy tissue. They also look at the lesion contrast, which is really the brightness difference between healthy tissue and lesion tissue. And following the FDA guidance, we have a set, and that other companies have also been following. We have 3 independent radiologists who will report on each patient. They will assess the liver, all lesions. They will score based on this. And we need to prove that utilizing Orviglance will lead to higher scores than doing the unenhanced. That is what we have consistently done in all previous studies. So what we reported earlier this month was that we could not make a conclusion on efficacy. This was very surprising and very unfortunate. So the issue that we reported was that 2 of the readers had high level of intra-reader variability. So what does that mean? Intra-reader variability means that a reader is having variability in the scoring. So to test this, to make sure, and this is basically an inbuilt quality control set of the image reading process, which is again according to FDA guidelines. So some of the images in the database will be put into the database twice. So the radiologist will look at these images twice, and you would obviously expect, that the scoring of the same image by the same radiologist, but at different time points, it should be identical. That is what you would expect. That is also what the FDA and the EMA and other regulatory agencies want to have in a qualified assessment. So what we reported is that there was a high level of inter-reader variability, which means that there was a high and very significant difference between the scoring for between these 2 images on the same image, but at 2 different time points by 2 of the 3 readers. And if they have different scores, one is high, first time it's high, other time it's low, or the other way around, you cannot really tell which one is the correct one. And that means that the conclusion from that reader, you can't really make a conclusion. And therefore, with 2 out of 3 readers having high variability, there is no chance to make any conclusion with any confidence. So we cannot really use the scores to make a conclusion. So what I also want to stress is that all the patients have been imaged. The images on the database, all the patient data is in the database, so we don't need to enroll more patients or do more studies. We fully believe that the data we have is sufficient, but we need to do a qualified assessment. So the way forward is that now we will focus all our resources on the re-evaluation. So we will be selecting new readers. We will be doing an extensive training to make sure that they strictly follow the protocol, the reading manual scores, which seemed to be the issue in the first process. And again, we don't see need for more patients or more studies. We are also announced, this was early August, that we have taken initiatives to reduce cost. And in this context, we announced earlier today, as mentioned, that we are reducing the organization significantly, where the people who will continue are the ones that are focused on doing the re-evaluation and the core operational parts of the company. So it's a very unfortunate event that decision that we have been forced to take because of the need to do the re-evaluation. We will have also announced that in mid-September we will provide a timeline for the re-evaluation and the financial runway and the financial implications. And obviously the cost saving on the organization is one aspect of that, but we also have looked and implemented cost savings in a lot of other areas wherever possible. We continue to be very confident in the opportunity for Orviglance, both in the unmet medical need and the likelihood that the outcome will be successful. We've not seen data that should lead us to conclude otherwise, that Orviglance does not work. We have also consistently received very positive feedback from the investigators in the Sparkle clinical trial. So confidence is, this has been a sort of major disappointment that we couldn't conclude, but we believe that we'll get there and we can bring Orviglance to the patients who need it. So the commercial opportunity, as mentioned, is $800 million, with the US being almost half that market opportunity. We think this is a very attractive opportunity for Ascelia by improving care for cancer patients with severe kidney disease. So in particular in the US, when we look at the more dynamics, we believe that there are about 100,000 procedures annually in this patient population. When we look at benchmarks on other comparable products, not for liver, but innovative diagnostics and our payer research, we think a price level of $3,000 to $4,500 per dose is reasonable and will provide value to the healthcare system. So this is a very tangible opportunity. And again, Orviglance is a first-in-class product, and it's the only product really with this profile for this patient population. The unmet medical need has been, you could say, is documented by the black box warning, but it's also something that is well recognized in the medical community. So more than 90% of the healthcare professionals are concerned about the issues relating to the gadolinium, including the nephrogenic systemic fibrosis. This is the key concern. That is what we're focusing on in the target population. But there are additional concerns, such as the deposition of the gadolinium, which is a toxic heavy metal, depositions in brains and organs, increased focus on gadolinium that is increasing in the water supply that we have, and it's really difficult to clean out of our drinking water. And we see that it is increasing consistently over the last few decades. And the industry is also responding in a way with less use of gadolinium in some ways. And GE Healthcare has also started early development of an intravenous agent, which we see as complementary to Orviglance. But really, in this landscape, with increased safety concerns, Ascelia is leading globally with Orviglance, an oral manganese agent, which is in phase 3 and completed the phase 3 enrollment. So exciting future ahead, but we are certainly disappointed with the lack of a conclusion from the readout process, but we'll get there. So now I'll be switching gears to Oncoral, which is our oral irinotecan agent. So we have a patented tablet formulation of irinotecan. So irinotecan is being used in clinical practice today, in particular for colorectal cancer, but also for gastric cancer. So the way irinotecan is used today is an infusion in the hospital every third week. So that leads to a very high concentration. Especially during this period, the side effects are really severe. What we believe we can do and improve on this is we take the irinotecan in our tablets that allows the patient to take dosing on a daily basis, which will give them over a 3-week period a comparable exposure to the active metabolite, so drive efficacy. But also by avoiding the high peak concentration, we believe that there are potential for improving the side effect. That is what we saw in the phase 1 and 2 studies, in particular with the side effect, hematological side effect known as neutropenia, depletion of white blood cells. And as many of you know, white blood cells are important for the functioning of the immune system, which is a considerable issue in cancer patient population. So very encouraging from the phase 1 studies in terms of the safety profile. When we look at data in the literature about the more frequent dosing, here's a study that shows that overall survival improves in breast cancer with irinotecan based on doing dosing every week instead of every third week. We intend to take this one step further by doing daily dosing instead of weekly dosing. So again, support for the profile of Oncoral. So what we're planning for phase 2 is that we will combine Oncoral with Lonsurf. So Lonsurf is an approved tablet formulation of a chemotherapeutic product. And it's the combination, an all-tablet combination of Lonsurf and Oncoral, we think is very attractive, in particular in gastric cancer, where Lonsurf is approved. What you can see in the animal model in the chart to the left here is that there is a synergistic effect between Lonsurf and irinotecan. And that is what we will explore in the phase 2 study, where we're looking into combining the two versus Lonsurf alone. And we have an early stage, you could say, clinical collaboration with Taiho Oncology, the owner of Lonsurf, in terms of doing this study. So the IND has been approved, but right now we're focusing all our resources on Orviglance. So we will not start the study until we have, you say, additional funding. And mentioned, just to round off on Oncoral, gastric cancer is the lead indication, but there are lots of other indications where we think Oncoral has a role to play and to improve the care of cancer patients. So to round off, we continue to have high confidence in Orviglance, first-in-class orphan diagnostic drug targeting an $800 million market. We got the last patients into the trial earlier this year, and very disappointed that we could not reach a conclusion from the readout process. We're preparing a re-evaluation of this, and we have announced that we will, in mid-September, come with a timeline and also a financial runway for getting through to the re-evaluation. Oncoral has a tremendous opportunity in solid tumors, and we're focusing initially on gastric cancer. That is super exciting, but not a very active program just as we speak. So with that, I'd like to conclude my presentation and be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Magnus. Very interesting. And just to clarify, you're spending a little bit of time on Oncoral, the Oncoral opportunity, but as I understand it, it's fair that to assume that it's put completely on hold until Orviglance the Sparkle study is finished, right?
Yeah, we're focusing the resources that we have on Orviglance. That is where we see the biggest short-term value increase potential. So Oncoral it's a clinical study getting the results. We have done the phase 3 study with Orviglance, and now we want to get this. We want to see the results.
Okay, good. Turning back to this issue of the radiologist having this high variability in reading the images. What's your current assessment? I know you have an update in mid-September, but so far, are you getting closer to getting an idea of what has gone wrong? Because I know you've had a phase 2 study with 20 patients, and that was the same approach, I guess, to reading these images from different radiologists, but still it was the same approach as far as I understand. So what can you say about what is the likely explanation for what is going on? Yeah,
and I mean, needless to say, we've been analyzing these data and the process, in great detail. I mean, I think what our understanding is that the issue is clearly in terms of, you would say, the variability is derived from having, you would say, the right training, the right instruction that is fully understood, and that there's, you could say, if the scoring scales are, you could say, sufficiently simple and easy to understand, then you will put the right score every time, right? And I think that's where the root cause is. And what we have also learned is that by speaking to our network and friends in various places and KOLs, this is not an uncommon problem in medical imaging. It is something that happens on a regular basis. And there are other products that have had similar issues that have, based on the same data, have been approved by the regulatory authorities. It is an issue that when you look at the data, for instance, when you look at AI software to read images, it shows that radiologists are usually not consistent. There's also always some kind of variability. Here, what we saw with 2 of the readers was that it was, just way too high to be able to conclude anything. We will do things differently, and that is what we are putting together into the plan, and so we can announce the timeline.
Okay, there's a question here regarding the ongoing, I guess the ongoing discussion with FDA regarding these issues. What can you say about that?
I cannot really say a lot about the discussions from the FDA. I mean, also the FDA meetings are typically you send information, you send your questions, and then they respond, and then when you have the response, then you can communicate, then you know what the response is. So it's not, as you could say, the dialogue is never with the FDA sort of a back and forth dialogue in that manner. It's you plan for a meeting, you have the meeting, and then when you get the minutes, you can conclude on the results. But what we do know is that other companies have had similar issues and have completed a re-evaluation of the images because of the quality issues in the reading process. They have done a re-evaluation with the required level of consistency, and the drugs have been approved and are on the market today.
Okay, and what about so you have to bring in new radiologists to read these images and assess the pictures. What is how fast can you educate? Because as I understand, this is you just don't call another radiologist. They have to be educated in reading these particular images. So how long does that take? How long time does that take?
Yeah, and that's what we will come back to in mid-September, when we have, you could say, a timeline that we feel confident that we can share. So, of course, we select radiologists who have been looking at liver images a great deal before. But I think it's also fair to say that it's not because the quality of the radiologist per se is not good. It's because what we are asking them to do in a clinical study, based on the FDA decision and you could say agreement on endpoints, is that they are evaluating the liver in a slightly different way than what they're doing in clinical practice. So here we're asking them to give a score on the border delineation and the lesion to liver contrast. And they're looking at that in regular clinical practice, but they're not providing scores when they evaluate the image. So they could say, oh, we think the border delineation is clear in this direction, and it's a little bit diffuse in this direction. But does that translate into a score of 2 or 3 or what kind of, that's a difference. And the issue is related to the consistency in having the same score. So when you do these images, they read each patient 3 times, unenhanced, combined unenhanced and Orviglance, and then a read session with Orviglance only. And we have about 85 plus, so it's plus the sample of images read twice. So it's more than 300 images sets that they need to read, each of them. And what is important is that there's no drifting, so that what is started being a 3 towards the end of the study, then obviously all of the time that's a 2. We need to be, if it's a 3, then it's 3 throughout the same kind of quality of the image, right? So I think that is the tricky part, and that is what we will be changing in going forward, and we are learning and putting together in the training material and in the, you could say, looking at ways to ensure throughout the study reading process that there will be consistency.
Okay, and just to finish off here, we just got a few more seconds. So today's announcement, it's written that this will, by having these cost reduction, this will secure funding. Current funding will be able to take you through to Spark. Is that correct understood?
No, it supports our ambition to have sufficient funding. So we cannot definitively conclude that. We will provide that when we have present the timeline in mid-September. So we are low on funding, But our ambition is that we can reduce cost and focus our resources so that we can complete the reevaluation with the current funding that we have. But until we know the exact timeline, it's difficult to say that we have sufficient funding. So we need the timeline, and the funding and the financial outlook goes hand in hand.
Okay, thank you very much. So with that, we have to finish off here. So, thank you, CEO Magnus Kofodsen of Ascelia Pharma. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.